support. And for those out there who are suffering, for those who do struggle with addictions that I see every day, I saw it as a counselor, I see it in the community chaplain program at St. James Mission, is that folks are being blocked on their road to treatment. I think that came up as you were talking, Peter. People are having roadblocks stood up. As you said, folks are even not willing to admit that they at one point in their past had, oh, thanks. Cool. Yeah, folks, in the past, they're not even willing to admit that they had a problem with heroin or cocaine in the past. That's a stigma that goes, right, yeah. And so, and there's a stigma that follows people with that, and that puts up a roadblock to people actually seeking treatment for their addictions, because they're afraid of reprisal. They're afraid of being labeled with either a diagnosis or just a general stigma that, oh, you're just another addict, you're just another junkie. And it's, again, another way that we scapegoat people and to put them in a little box and demean them, and so that we can feel a little bit better about ourselves when we watch the news at night.
There's another aspect of this that we say at LEAP all the time, that you could recover from your addiction. You never recover from your conviction.
That's true.
If we hang a felony conviction on you, that goes with you to every job interview you go to for the rest of your life. Your addiction never shows up. I mean, if you can become a heroin addict at 18, stay full-blown in your addiction until you're 23, go into recovery, come out of it at 25, you fill out a job. Nobody asked you about that. There's no question about that. But if you were arrested and got a felony conviction, that's on, and that stays with you forever. And how does that help somebody that's already got a problem?
Point out some great progress recently. I'm sure everyone knows, those that may not, that New York State recently withdrew the Rockefeller laws. I think that was a great step forward to help with.
What are the Rockefeller laws? I'm not familiar.
The Rockefeller laws?
What do you?
Well, basically, it's a series of laws that created a lot of the problem that he was talking about, where you have this racial undertone to that. I mean, for example, you have racially disparaging laws. You got these, for example, a lawyer gets pulled over with powder cocaine, and he gets a slap on the wrist or something along those lines, and then you see someone in my district gets caught with rock form, and the penalties are that much stricter. Also, I think it addresses more of it. We can now start to look at the drug problem more as a substance abuse problem, not a criminal problem. It's a step at decriminalizing. I mean, we criminalize too much.
Yeah,
Someone else might be a little more expert on it.
We have we incarcerate more of our population per capita than any other nation in the world except for China, and we also have the largest drug abuse problem per capita in the world. Incarceration is not working. We need to try something else, and if the answers aren't working, and we've tried enough different answers, well, maybe it starts start asking questions about our questions. Maybe we're just not asking the right questions.
Yeah, just to give some numbers to this, here's a chart, so it's got to be real. It's a chart. 12% of the U.S. population African Americans, and here there's a big jump when it comes to drug use, because those 12% of the American population, they make up 13% of the drug users in America. So that's just about the same as where they are in the population. 35% of the arrests for drugs possession, African Americans. 55% of the convictions for drugs are African American. And 74% of the drug sentences are African American. Now, I can tend to look at these numbers. The only way you cannot see racism in that is if you have a white sheet pulled over your head. Otherwise, it's obvious on its face. And I have another chart that I want to mention, and you'll see that this is a chart that's got two big bumps and a hollow valley in the middle, and it starts out small. This is the beginning of the century, 1900. This is 1933, the end of Prohibition. This is the homicide rate in America. Steadily climbed from the time of 1920, when we started Prohibition, till we ended Prohibition. Ended Prohibition in 33, what did the homicide rate do? Dropped drastically, okay? And by the way, a big part of this drop was back in the period between 1933 and 1940. which was the deepest, darkest period of the Depression. So we had a lot of angry people in America, unemployed, 30–40% in some areas. Plus, alcohol was legal in that period. And that's the drug we know has the closest relationship with violence. So we had a legal drug, a lot of angry people, homicide rate should have went up. But see, the thing they were fighting over, killing each other over the money, that was now being handled by legitimate legal people and legitimate standards. Then you get Nixon kicks off the drug war in the 70s, and what happens? Homicide rate drives way back up again, and has stayed at that level until present. This is what we're talking about with legalization. Not the drugs, this. The homicide rate, the violence, the killing. That we have to get out of this marketplace.
Right, and in terms of coming at it from a treatment perspective, like I said, this is blocking people from seeking the treatment that they need. For those who do have a problem with drug abuse, and it's the stigma around it that's blocking folks, and that is only getting worse. And starting July 1st, 2007, it became New York State policy, courtesy of OASIS, which is the Office of Alcohol and Substance Abuse Services, that is the licensing government organization for all substance abuse treatment facilities in New York. All of them were required to go smoke-free. So the facilities are all of a sudden cracking down on even tobacco. And what we've seen in some facilities is as much as a 40% drop in the rate of utilization. 40% less people seeking treatment who need to seek treatment. And because going to treatment, in this case with nicotine, just means I gotta give up my smokes, I'm not ready to do that. You have a lot more people getting kicked out. We saw that constantly when I worked at the Addiction Crisis Center here. After we went smoke-free, I basically became a cop. Whereas before, the face time I was guaranteed with my clients was gone, and all of a sudden, my main job became walking around and making sure people aren't smoking in the bathroom, and we would have to kick people out because, well, it's according to OASIS regulations, nicotine is a drug. You're using drugs in our facility. We were required by state regulations to eject people from the program, and especially in and around here where the Addiction Crisis Center also doubles as a homeless shelter. We had situations where we were kicking people out who are homeless into the cold of an upstate New York winter with nowhere to go. And so I've seen just how this sort of prohibition creep, as it were, that through this moral mythology that we've created, through this view that we create to feel better about ourselves, that saying, well, it's drugs, and now we're even saying it's tobacco, well, we just got to get rid of everything. Through this, we are hurting people, and we are putting up blocks to people seeking treatment who really do need treatment and really do want treatment, but they're afraid to go public and say, I need help, because of the potential consequences that could come from that. And it's really tragic. So.
Go ahead, Sue.
Barrett, I want to add to that complicated matters with people with a dual diagnosis, especially if they have mental illness. Sometimes they're not allowed in the clinics to get treatment for that.
Absolutely, and duly
and they're homeless too, in many cases.
Yeah, and duly diagnosed, just for folks who might not be familiar with the terminology, someone with a dual diagnosis is someone who is diagnosed both with a substance abuse issue and also has a mental illness that they're struggling with at the same time. And just so you know, like the rate of folks who are duly diagnosed, about 73% of substance abuse clients are also mental health clients and are dually diagnosed. It's really, really common. And so, as Suniti said, the blocks that are being put up for them as well are even more so because they're wrestling with their mental illness, and for anything from depression to paranoid schizophrenia. So.